Listening to the latest. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Welcome to Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today, I am guest hosting. We are talking with three amazing guests. Some of them have been on some of these shows before, but we're revisiting, and we're going to go back and get some good expert advice on what's going on in the upcoming year, what's changing, and what you need to be aware of. From a professional construction manager, from a professional mortgage broker, and from an attorney. So I'm going to quickly go through and introduce who our panel is today, and we'll talk all things real estate and what we think the projections are. First up, we have Steve Temple. He's a certified mortgage planning consultant with Vintage Mortgage Professionals in Southern California. He has an economics degree from Iowa State University, an MBA from Golden Gate University. He is a skilled and knowledgeable mortgage consultant that has a 20-year proven track record of providing accurate and detailed advice to current and potential homeowners throughout the country. Part of a select group of certified mortgage planning specialists, he provides and recommends strategies to his clients. Personal service and communication that he provides, coupled with his attention to detail and responsiveness, allows for the borrower to have peace of mind and confidence in home financing processes. And I've known Steve for, I'm going to say, at least 10 years, maybe even longer. Jonathan Preston is an attorney. He's licensed in the state of California, specializes in commercial litigation with an emphasis on construction cases. He also handles bankruptcy disputes, business law, and legal issues involving real estate. Mr. Preston is a former employee of American Title and has 22 years of experience handling numerous and diverse legal issues concerning real estate and property. He strives to be pragmatic as possible in order to achieve cost-effective resolutions to legal problems. And we also have Tunde Ogunwale. He is a professional construction manager on the commercial industrial sector of the industry. He is one of the former hosts of Real Men of Real Estate television show. He did those shows along with me, and he has an alum of the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Welcome, gentlemen. It's great to have you on Real Men of Real Estate.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
All right, so let's get into some of this discussion. First off, it's been an interesting year. 2022 started off with a bang and everything was going very strong. And somewhere along the way, we hit a bump. And by the end of the year, we wouldn't have recognized what was going on at the beginning of the year. And now we go into the next year. So some of the issues we have coming up, obviously there is inflation. There is an overall economic recession as defined by economic terms. There has been a slowdown in the real estate market, a tightening of capital available. And all these things are looking as some people think it's disaster. I personally don't think it's that bad. It's a total disaster at this point, but there's a lot of things that give people pause. Let's look at a couple of these issues. First off, inflation. Inflation is on everybody's mind. It's a big deal. Inflation is great if you've got a flat bicycle tire. It's not so good if you're trying to deal with the finances right now. So let's talk about how inflation is affecting things. And first off, I want to talk with Steve Temple about mortgages. Is inflation right now a good thing or a bad thing in your world as far as activity?
Well, actually, it's a good thing if you own real estate, but if you don't, it's a bad thing. So as far as inflation goes, people are always asking, well, hey, how come the interest rates have gone up so much? They've increased. They've nearly doubled from a year ago. And the bottom line is inflation is the arch enemy of interest rates. So the more inflation, the higher the interest rates, typically speaking. And so that's why we're in the position where we are now. With the interest rates where they are and the inflation, but real estate's an amazing hedge against inflation. So if you own real estate, you're in a great position. And as a matter of fact, I was just pulling up a study this morning that talks about home prices over the last decade since the 70s. Home prices have either met or exceeded consumer price increases. For example, in the 70s, home prices 9.9%, consumer prices went up 7.2%, so much higher. And then 80s was about the same. The 90s, about a point and a little bit over a point higher for real estate appreciation over consumer prices. And 2000s was pretty much the same across the board, so very even. And in the 10s, 4.9% for home prices versus 1.8 for consumer prices. And then the last 2 years, of course, you know what's happened with real estate. We've got 12% nationwide appreciation over consumer increase of 3%, which that's going to increase now because of inflation. But real estate is just a great hedge against inflation.
Yeah, interesting enough that except for the last downturn in the early mid 2000s, which was very much caused by not by real estate, but probably by lending practices in real estate, funding issues in real estate. In previous recessions, historically, real estate has gone up. The real estate market has boomed when the economy is in a recession. And I think is that probably because it's a hedge against the inflation?
Um, I'd say yes, but it's more of what is happening during that time. For example, during a recession, interest rates drop. And it's typical year after year that happens. And so, um, if you're like most people, we think here in the next year or so, we're going to go deep into a recession, and they're going to have to drop the interest rates to stimulate the economy. And when you drop the interest rates, more people then can afford to buy, more people feel it's the right time to buy, and then there's more demand for real estate. And so then values will go up again.
Okay. So let's say look at some other angles here. When you have inflation and you have long-term contracts, I work in a business, we're in real estate, and we do long escrows. We throw projects into under contract for 2 years plus sometimes while we it's land deals. So I'm going to throw this out to Jonathan. With inflation being a factor right now, how's that affecting terms and contracts? Is that a consideration right now?
It's a very serious consideration. If you are a developer, you're not going to want to bid on a project using prices on today's dates if you know that the project's not going to begin for another 6 months or 1 year. So you're going to want to have clauses in your contract that allow you to adjust basic pricing based on current CPI levels at the time of the actual purchase of the material. And so developers are skittish about entering into long-term deals on a fixed price at today's dates. It's just not good business.
So now, if we're looking at adjustable prices in the contract, that makes it very difficult to estimate a final cost. Okay, so I'm going to throw this over to Tunde because I know he works in this realm of the world. How do you budget a project if there's potential for price escalations in the project that you can't possibly know what they're going to be because of supply chain issues or inflation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's a lot of different strategies that different owners and developers use. Sometimes they have an initial guaranteed maximum price where you try to bracket what you think the initial cost is going to be. And as was discussed earlier, sometimes you want to come back to and review what your underwriting and what your budgeting has been as time goes by, whether you review it on a monthly basis or if you review it more frequently than that. Try to check in to see how the market conditions are. One of the things that's kind of talked about, we often talk about inflation, and basically in economic terms, it's too many dollars chasing too few goods. And for those who've been in construction over the last 18 months, they've seen construction pricing go up so rapidly. You'd see 1%, 2% per month increases. So in some ways, a lot of the things that we're seeing the Fed do in terms of staving inflation by increasing the interest rates is to slow down that rate of increase so that there is a little bit more stability in pricing. So the hope would be as we move through 2023 that the costs that have rapidly gone up so high in many material goods and the cost of construction, that'll start to stabilize so that there's a bit more clarity. So that's just something for the viewers to really kind of pay attention to, is that there's a benefit to seeing some of the price stability become a little bit more clear by slowing down some of that action. And then there's obviously a bunch of different terms, whether you bulk buy and procure certain long lead items in advance if you know that you're going to develop. In the case of those people who work in large scale projects, that's one strategy, is to buy the materials spot prices today if you feel like you've got enough confidence in what your underwriting is and what your capital stack is offering. That's one way to kind of control and moderate it, or to continue to have those negotiations with vendors, suppliers, general contractors, so that you could update your budget and possibly get some, price discounts in the future if you're delaying some of the development activity.
So we're going to go to a break pretty short, but I want to throw this out there. We can think on this and then come back and talk about it afterwards. Price is one piece of the puzzle when we're talking about purchasing homes or building developments. Time is the other issue. There's the price, the period, and the performance are kind of the three big things in a contract. And so the time is an issue that I see coming in as well, because we've had supply issues. I know, for example, visited my mother and she needed a new dishwasher. Bosch dishwashers are 9 to 10 months out right now. And it's chip issues and those type of things. They just can't get them. Plastics are in short supply right now. So those kind of things going on. So where construction has always been just in time, has always been the way we want to do things. As you just said, Tunde, that's probably not going to happen right now. We're looking at bulk buying and storing stuff. So as we go to the break, I want you to think about how timing is affected on these things. And we'll come back and pick that up on the other side, because that's, I think, another thing that's an issue right now. This is Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We are with Steve Temple, Tunde Ogunwale, and Jonathan Preston, discussing what is changing this year and what we can look forward to. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't move.
Are you a real estate investor looking for a new opportunity in one of the top tourist destinations in the world? Look no further. Welcome to Punta Cana. Perla Bahia is a private resort-style community in Punta Cana that consists of modern condos, custom villas, and various commercial amenities. So if you're interested in learning more or joining us on one of our monthly investment tours, don't hesitate to contact me today at 909-494-2280.
FireUp Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. FireUp Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services, including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. FireUp Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station, kcaaradio.com.
You can find us on your dial at 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, as well as 106.5 FM.
Welcome back to Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today we're talking with Jonathan Preston, attorney at law, Toga Ogunwale. He is a vice president of development in construction management, and Steve Temple, who is a mortgage broker. And we've been talking about kind of what's changing. In the first segment, we focused a little bit on inflation and how that was affecting different things in the real estate and development and construction. So we kind of teased before the break about the time issue. Tunde, I want to pick up kind of where we left off with that. Are we looking at bid bonds and supply bonds and those kind of things being a thing right now in order to make sure we have what we want when we need it at a certain price?
That's a great question. Bonding, so you have the security of being able to get the materials when you need them, or some type of surety, is something that people are starting to investigate if they haven't before, and as a normal course of business. I touched on the idea of bulk purchasing or making orders in advance. We're all calling in from California, and we all know that there's a green movement in terms of trying to have more things electric. And what's interesting about that is being able to get switch gear, panel gear, etc., can take almost a year. And so sometimes you got to order that stuff now, even when you're not quite sure all the I's have been dotted and T's have been crossed, in order to be able to make sure that those goods come in time for your rehab and your value add project or new development. And so there's different ways that people are addressing the time factor with some of the supply chain delays that we've experienced over the last year or so. So bonding is one element, ordering up front is another element, and really getting creative on, do you have other sources of material that could be used as an alternate for what you'd normally got? And I think a lot of people are doing that in their home life, in terms of, are you getting the same goods that you got at home as you did before when you don't maybe have the same SKUs available to you, or do you have an alternate source of supply?
Okay, and Jonathan, with that comes up some other issues. So there's some risk with that. If we're going to buy stuff early, supplies and those kind of things, that means there's risk. There's cost for storage, and there's risk when we have things before we need them, because they can be damaged, lost, stolen, go out of date, different things like that. What can we do to mitigate some of those risks legally if we're up against doing things differently than we've done in the past?
Well, the obvious thing is to insure as much as you can of the material, which is not as easy as it seems. Buying insurance to store materials that are not going to be used is not something that is regularly given by a lot of insurance brokers. There's probably products out there, I'm just not an expert in this field, but that's one option. And what Tunde mentioned is essentially, in legal terms, we often refer to it as a performance bond. Mm-hmm. Basically a bond to guarantee that certain things will be completed, and they're very common in public works projects, as well as larger developers will demand them. And what I'm seeing as far as delays is a lot of pent-up demand based on COVID is finally starting to release, and that's causing a shortage in labor, which contributes to problem in development. And it's really a function of whether your developer has an effective labor pool to draw from is something that you have to look out for. If you're going to hire a subcontractor, you want to make sure that they can properly man up a job nowadays.
Okay, so there's a risk there, and so you're talking about transferring risk through contract terms initially. You transfer your risk as an owner to the general, who probably transfers them over to the subcontractors. Okay. And that transfers the risk of not being able to staff a project, and also the risk of having to acquire materials that may or may not be available for a long time, and prices that may change.
Yes.
So terms and conditions is what we're talking about in contracts. Very
terms and conditions that just were not in use a few years ago. Was not an issue.
So the boilerplate contracts that we were using for the last 10 years may not be adequate right now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So let's jump back over to the funding side, because now, Steve, I know you do mostly mortgages, but I'm sure you're familiar with some of the funding that comes with construction loans and those type of things. Those are related. Do you see these factors coming into how you're structuring the loan products, the timing on the loan products, interest rates on the loan products, because of timing issues, because of the risks that are involved in projects?
As far as the funding of mortgages, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, mortgages. And I know there's also, I know you don't do the construction loans, but it's kind of somewhat closely related to your role.
Yeah, well, on the residential side, there's construction loans versus commercial, and those are really sort of two different products. On the residential side, the construction of perm loans follow suit with all our traditional mortgages that we have on our side, and the funding is never really a problem. The current marketplace, the majority of the funds come from the bond market, the mortgage-backed securities bond market traded on Wall Street, and usually through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So on our side of things, the funding's fairly solid and secure. Certainly in 2008, during the big challenges we had there, There was a lot of funding challenges. A lot of the funding was done through private entities and private institutions, and a lot of that just totally collapsed at that time due to what had happened then, which was a real anomaly over the last 50 years. But otherwise, today on our side of things right now, funding is very stable and very available on the residential side.
All right, it's good news. People just may have to add in a little more cost for longer term loans because it may take them longer to get things done. And obviously the clock's ticking from the day you take that money out, it's adding up on you, especially.
Yeah, when it comes from a cost standpoint and timing for the consumer or the 1 to 4 unit investor that we focus on, it's just a matter of, does it make sense at this time for the investor? Does it make sense? Does the property cash flow? If it's negative, can you withstand that to whatever your forecast is for a rate drop or the rents to increase to make that project make sense?
Now, one thing that Jonathan mentioned, and I want to throw this over to Tunde, is that the labor issue. There is in fact a labor shortage. It's pretty severe. It was severe when things were booming, and you would think, oh well, things are supposed to be slowing down now. That's getting better, and it's not. There is a shortage of management. There's a shortage of skilled labor in virtually every trade, and that's affecting things. So Tunde, on your end of things, since you're managing larger projects, how are you seeing the staffing issues right now on projects?
Well, it is a challenge for sure. I mean, I think a lot of skilled labor and covering different trades has been challenging in many different trades. So one of the challenges that the ways that people are approaching the challenges are having a little bit more detailed conversations with your subcontractors and your vendors to figure out what the labor looks like and determine whether or not you've got to extend your construction durations to account for the fact that you may not have the stable performance and ability to compete crews to move things more efficiently. So that's something that we're definitely observing that. I think Jonathan mentioned in the previous sector that there is a bit of conservatism that a lot of developers are applying in terms of, you know, do we need to develop now or can you postpone so that there's some time to heal, so to speak, and have more of the crews available, be able to evaluate your capital stack and your terms to move forward. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge in terms of balancing the time element and the cost element with the labor challenges. And, you know, think about what a lot of people went through, that they're working remote. So in construction, where it's a very physical activity, it's challenging to give people the skills that you would need to be efficient and competent. And balancing that on developments has been an area that we've definitely seen in commercial real estate.
Construction is interesting because it's an in-situ process. So what that means is the workers have to go to the dirt. They have to go where the site is. Number two, you can't outsource it. You can't send the real estate to China, have it built and bring it back. It doesn't work that way. It's got to be where the dirt is. And you also have an issue if it's outside work. We've had some severe weather issues. This last year has been pretty wild ride with hurricanes, tornadoes, ice storms, and blizzards and all kinds of crazy stuff. Even Christmas week was insane. And obviously that hurts things. So all that added up because the nature of what construction is, I think affects a lot of these things. And it's hard to find the labor. We can't get too deep into all the reasons for that. I have a lot of opinions on where we've gone wrong with trade school and shop classes and all kinds of other stuff in our whole culture. But that's a different discussion for a different time. But it is where we are. There is a definite shortage of willing, trained people to work in construction, which is affecting the timing. And we've kind of talked about what that already does contract-wise and those type of issues and projects. And it does affect the cost on a project too. The longer a project takes, the more money it takes to keep the project going because the loan is out there, because there's risk. You're paying insurance on this stuff, and there's risk because there's also, in most public sector projects, there's damage clauses in the contracts. So it can be very dicey. And the next segment, what I want to get into is exactly what you alluded to, and that is the tendency to want to slow things down a little bit if you're in the development and construction side of what that means. But for the balance of this segment, I just want to kind of finish up on timing and what that means. from a legal and a practical standpoint. So as construction managers, we're always taught delay is disaster, go, 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 get it done yesterday. Is that still the right mantra, or has that changed? Because that's what was embedded into my head as a construction.
Yeah, I'll open up, and maybe Jonathan and Steve feel free to chime in, but I would say that there is a little bit more of a, can we be thoughtful here? Can we dot our I's and cross our T's and maybe find better talent, whether it's contractual talent or whether it's construction talent to bring to bear? There is some of that, and I would say that that's probably a bit of a theme in 2023, is that we're all pivoting to thinking through, hey, what's the right way to do this, and can we approach it a little bit differently now that things are slowing down in the world? Can we use that time to be a little bit more strategic and thoughtful?
Great. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to pick up where we left on that and talk about should we be slowing the pace down. I'm Steve Matley, your host for Real Men of Real Estate. We're talking with Steve Temple, Tunde Ogunwale, and Jonathan Preston today. We'll be right back.
Are you a real estate investor looking for a new opportunity in one of the top tourist destinations in the world? Look no further. Welcome to Punta Cana. Perla Bahia is a private resort-style community in Punta Cana that consists of modern condos, custom villas, and various commercial amenities. So if you're interested in learning more or joining us on one of our monthly investment tours, don't hesitate to contact me today at 909-494-2280.
Hello, welcome to Fire Up Connect. Are you a small business owner? Do you lack the resources to manage your business? Is visibility and brand awareness a top priority for you? Fire Up Connect is a community of small business owners. We help our members find the right connections and the right resources to help them be successful. This isn't your typical business networking group. Members of Fire Up Connect are innovative, driven, and all about building long-lasting relationships. We work to identify your goals and understand what it is you do and how we can help you brand yourself and your business. Fire Up Connect is about creating business opportunities, community projects, educational sessions, and live seminars to help implement effective marketing programs for our members. Fire Up Connect helps members gain validation in their businesses, learn what challenges similar business leaders are facing, and access to subject matter experts on how to overcome these challenges. Fire Up Connect offers opportunities for organic exposure through our many marketing events, programs, and projects. There are 4 colors that make up Fire Up Connect. Yellow represents the back office and services available to Fire Up Connect members. Red represents Fire Up Connect's marketing and advertising resources, such as TV shows, radio, magazine book publication, and movie projects. Green represents Fire Up Connect's referral system, tracking incentives, and blue represents Fire Up Connect's donation, fundraising, and scholarship programs. Fire Up Connect members have access to monthly business sessions, price discounts on affiliated companies, and all Fire Up Connect programs, book publications, published articles for your business, access to Fire Up Connect scheduled webinar events, a photo shoot session, and a video production. Join us for our annual Fire Up Live seminars and gain valuable connections in the Fire Up community and boost your business. We believe in your business. We believe in what you do. At Fire Up Connect, we believe in you. Join us for our annual Fire Up Live seminars to gain, discover, and get fired up.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station kcaaradio.com.
You can find us on your dial at 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, as well as 106.5 FM.
Welcome back to Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today, we are talking with Tunde Ogunwale, Steve Temple, and Jonathan Preston, and we are looking at different perspectives on what is changing and what to expect and how we want to react to how things are changing right now. And we talked about inflation, we talked about interest rates, we talked about the pace of things, supply shortages, labor shortages, and all that seems to culminate where we left off with maybe the answer is to slow things down. And this is something that's, for me, coming out of a construction management background, out of a developer's background, you never want to slow things down. We always said delay is disaster. But right now, it may be the prudent thing to do to actually slow things down and stretch things out and make things go slower. Jonathan, does that create any legal quagmire we need to be aware of where we're trying to actually pace ourselves and slow things down as opposed to push and get everything through like we used to?
Yes. Well, mainly what I wanted to mention was slowing down really is a question about the market. If the market can sustain the homes that are going to be purchased, or, an adequate, if interest rates are too high and it's causing a month and a half to 2 to 3 month escrow, which is unusual, then that's something that a developer has to consider. Okay. But as far as your question about what does it do from a legal perspective, if a contract gives a developer, say, 6 months to complete one phase of a subdivision, he has to meet that, especially if he's under contract with a homeowner to provide a certificate of occupancy within a specific time frame. If he does not, he could be liable, or a homeowner could pull out of the purchase. A lot of problems could develop by that. And so the question for the developer really is am I going to be finished in this time frame that I've already preset in the contract? And will the city work with me adequately to make sure that I can get my inspections done, get this home finished, and get an occupancy permit on time so that I can enter into escrow and close this appropriately? And what I see is that developers are skittish on this, and they want additional time. So what a 6-month construction project now turns into 1 year. Even backyard projects used to take just 3 months. I've seen them going over a year to complete a swimming pool, which is ridiculous, but this is a common occurrence nowadays. And it's unfortunate, but homeowners can either decide to be patient or they can try and pull out, which is rare, but that does happen. So it's just a difficult thing for a developer to foresee the future on how this project's going to go down. But he has to make sure that he can reasonably perform within a specified time frame. And if it goes over 1 or 2 months, most homeowners will probably stick it out and still want to complete the purchase. But if it goes on for another 6 months to a year, forget it. You're going to have homeowners wanting to go elsewhere.
Okay, if there's somewhere else to go, and then that's exactly. A good question, because there's a low inventory of existing homes out there, and there's very few new homes being built right now, and that creates a real pinch. I thought interesting you mentioned kind of the long sales escrows and the fact that it could be contractually obligated to finish within a certain time frame. But I would guess that those terms in the contracts will start changing pretty quickly.
That's correct.
And homeowners will have to be ready to, whether they have to rent a place in between, Airbnbs or extended stays or whatever it is, waiting for certificates of occupancy. And I think there's another issue that comes in here, and that is agencies having jurisdiction are short-staffed right now too. So trying to get, you mentioned approvals, so plan checks, permits, entitlement approvals, they're not fully staffed departments these days. And you have a lot of, not only understaffed, a lot of the more experienced retired out during the pandemic. And so you have a lot of more green people in there. And that's not a knock on them. It's just, they're newer, they're younger. They just don't know. So Tunde, are you seeing that as an issue in your projects? Is there issues with the agencies having jurisdiction right now?
Oh, I'm laughing because you're describing what it was like over the last couple of years, where you had the shock of everybody working from home, and many public agencies were used to going into the office, so it was challenging kind of going to a remote world and doing an intake and trying to get permits and figure out if you can get people on site. And during that time, some people did, some more seasoned people at the different agencies did retire, or they decided to focus on other things and work, and so they work part-time. So definitely have seen many jurisdictions not only have staffing challenges in terms of experience, but public agencies aren't necessarily known for speed and efficiency, and I think that that's gotten a little bit slower, and that's probably pretty common in a lot of places, not just in California, but outside of California. One of the topics that I thought maybe connects this is, as a construction manager, we talk about the time, the cost, and quality. That's kind of the triangle: the time, the cost, the quality. You can get two sides of the triangle. The other one's going to be a little bit challenging. So if you want good quality at a lower price, then it's going to take more time, and vice versa. And so I think that's one of the things that all of us kind of in the construction management development are thinking about, that triangle. Which side of the triangle can we do without? And very few want to give up quality. And when it comes to having labor issues and then supply chain issues, you tend to need some more time to be able to do that, or you're willing to spend more money to get people to focus on your project versus something else. So anyway, those are a couple ideas there.
Yeah, I've also seen this, not just agencies of the jurisdiction, the utility companies have been shorthanded. And I've seen projects that were held up on their certificates of occupancy because they couldn't get the power hooked up. They just couldn't get the utilities done because there's nobody to do it. Or, as you mentioned, the equipment's not available. Because it's not just the equipment on your construction site, it's the equipment the utility company has to install to connect to, especially if you're doing new developments. And so that becomes a problem too, which most people haven't planned on. All right. So Steve Temple, are you seeing people wanting to pace things and slow down a little bit right now in your world as people are pulling loans? Do you see them backing away, or do you see more aggressiveness as perceived home prices are supposedly coming down, although I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And we get the full spectrum there. We're probably seeing more of cautiousness. Some people talk to their friends and family and they say, oh no, wait, the crash is coming. And so I think a lot of people just don't have all the right information. It's good to be cautious, but I certainly don't see a 2008 happening. It's for very different reasons. Back then, there was abundance of homes. We still have a shortage of homes nationwide, especially here in California. And the business has slowed down, certainly, but it's not a 10-month supply of homes. It's gone from several days of homes 7 months ago to maybe 4 or 5 months. That's sort of a normal marketplace, actually, for the supply of homes and how long it takes to sell a typical
Usually about
home.
6-month market is kind of normal, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they say that 6 months is really the market where it becomes goes from a seller's market to a buyer's market, and we're shifting. We're sort of balanced right now, and it's really a good time for buyers to buy, because especially over the last 2 years, you can put in an offer, there's maybe 20 other offers. You're competing with all these other offers and cash, and it's just a struggle to get your offer accepted. Now you get a little time. You can look. There's some great homes on the marketplace right now. Great time to buy. But the hesitancy comes from people, 2 areas. One is people who currently own a house, and they're maybe super low interest rate, and they're wondering, well, if we upgrade, because we want to upgrade, we need a bigger house, growing family, or whatever, our payment's going to go up significantly because the rate's going to be higher than what we have today. So that's the hesitancy with those people. But the first-time buyers, some of them have hesitancy because of their fearing that it's going to drop. And I don't see any big drops. We might have a little bit of adjustment nationwide, maybe a little bit, Matter of fact, I was looking at this Freddie Mac. I was looking at a report today. Freddie Mac predicts a 0.2% decrease. 0.2, so that's almost nothing. Fannie predicts a little bit higher drop. But then I was looking at the Mortgage Bankers Association. They're saying a soft market, the first first quarter into the second quarter this year. But they're saying by the end of the second quarter, they're expecting things to increase again with property values because they're anticipating rates dropping and more people wanting to get into the market.
Yeah, I think a lot of things, the mortgages have slowed down. Well, refinances are out because if you have a 2% interest, why would you go refinance anything else? Secondly, interest rates are not high right now. Historically, if you're looking at the last 10 years, they are. But if you're looking at the last 50, they're still on the low side.
No, in 2002, in 2002, we were right where we're at today.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends how long you want to stretch that trend line out to. And then we also have to always remember clickbait headlines are not necessarily all that accurate because that's what sells. That's what sells papers and social media clicks and those type of things is the astounding headlines. So we have to keep that in mind. And I think you're right. There's still a historic shortage of inventory out there, and we're not really building anything. And with that not changing, the population keeps growing. We still need a place to live. And I think you're right. Now, I would also say that because people may be hesitant to sell the place they're in now and buy a new one because it would change the loan, that means the tendency may be to add on, do some construction, but then we run into the problems we've talked about with Tunde already, which is we don't have supplies and we don't have labor, and that's a problem too.
And that's a real problem, if I can add. I just sat down this last Saturday. Some clients of ours up in Simi Valley, we've known for a long time, and same thing. They wanted to get a larger home, some place that we could bring mom in to live with them, and they just realized, we've got such a great deal on our jumbo loan right now. We don't want to do that, but how about add on a second mortgage or whatever to create the funds to fund that? And I learned from them that up there it's impossible for permitting. He says it will take 2 years up there. They can't get a contractor to call them back. And they've talked to other people and they say contractors come and they never come back. So there's a real challenge with that too.
All right, we're going to have to go to a break and we'll be coming back. We're going to wrap this up and get a final thought from everybody. This is Steve Matley, your host for Real Men of Real Estate. I'm with Jonathan Preston, Tunde Ogunwole, and Steve Temple. We'll be right back after this.
Are you a real estate investor looking for a new opportunity in one of the top tourist destinations in the world? Look no further. Welcome to Punta Cana. Perla Bahia is a private resort-style community in Punta Cana that consists of modern condos, custom villas, and various commercial amenities. So if you're interested in learning more or joining us on one of our monthly investment tours, don't hesitate to contact me today at 909-494-2280.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station kcaaradio.com.
You can find us on your dial at 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, as well as 106.5 FM.
Welcome back to Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today we are with Jonathan Preston, Steve Temple, and Tunde Ogunwole. And I want to go around and get some final thoughts. We've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about interest rates. We talked about supply chain issues. We talked about labor shortages. We talked about mortgages. We talked about risk issues, contracts, timing, um, getting permits, getting inspections, getting utilities hooked up, all these different things. And all this is in the light of what is changing now versus where we were a year ago and what's maybe going to happen in the next 12 months. So let's go around the table and get some final thoughts. I'm going to start with Jonathan Preston. Jonathan, what are your final thought you can share with our listeners?
Well, the first and foremost, I think the most important thing any developer needs to do is revisit their contracts. Take a look at what you've been using and make sure they apply in today's world. You need certain out clauses that allow you to adjust pricing. You need to look at your completion deadline language to make sure that you have appropriate language that allows you to get extensions that are appropriate if something like a labor shortage occurs, which will occur. Most clauses such as old acts of God, rain delays, those don't really cut it in today's world. You can't argue, and there's certainly not any strikes going on, so you can't delay projects based on the old language in your contract. So that's the main thing I wanted to bring to light today, is to really look at what you're using.
Okay, and because most people want to use those boilerplates, there's boilerplate contracts that come from different associations, and those are all standbys. But I think you want to run it to your attorney and say, what do we need to add, what do we need to revise, and what do we need to change, using this as a basis in order to keep it up to date.
Yes.
All right, and again, I'm always an advocate of go to the experts. Steve Temple, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I'd like to just say that, hey, now in the next 6 months might be the perfect time actually for those to buy a house who haven't been in the market before, because it's going to be a lot easier to find a house that you really like without a lot of competition and get into the house, or investors, because when you're investors, sometimes you're competing because sellers only want to sell to owner occupants. So it might be a great time for that. There's a term called marry the house, date the rate. And so basically what that's saying is, hey, if the opportunity exists that you find that perfect house today, you might want to marry that house right now and put a ring on it, because you always have the opportunity later as rates go up and down. There's going to be those opportunities, highly likely in the near term, that those are going to drop and you're going to be able to refinance and lower your rate and lower your payment. So this just might be the perfect time for a lot of people out there to get some property.
Okay, follow Beyonce's advice and put a ring on that thing. Got it. Okay. And next 6 months, good time to buy. And that's not what we're hearing from a lot of people. But again, as Warren Buffett always says, do the opposite of what the crowd is telling you to do, and you'll probably be in pretty good shape. I also would add to that, Steve, that because interest rates are an issue, if you're a cash buying investor, now is probably the time to go out, because you don't have a lot of competition. A lot of people that can't compete if they've got to get a higher interest loan, and cash doesn't care about.
Well, the thing about cash, though, you're eroding your buying ability by just sitting on that cash in a high inflationary market. So why not convert that to real estate that's going to appreciate over time, because real estate always appreciates over time.
Yeah, in Southern California, real estate has about doubled every 15 years like clockwork since the end of World War II. It goes up and down in between, but that's been the long-term trend. Mm-hmm. And there's other markets like that. Probably not true in Upper North Dakota, but there's a lot of markets that it does. All right, Tunde, what are your final thoughts?
In 2023, when you hear people talk about the slowdown of activity, it's really an opportunity to kind of speed up your ability to pivot. We talked earlier about the labor shortage. What that means is that there's a need and a strong demand for skills in the construction trades specifically. When you think about the grid, there's opportunities for a lot of the investor-owned utilities and the other utilities to find talented folks who can help power up these facilities. So there's a lot of opportunities that are emerging and overlooked. And so this is a great time for people to kind of think through, where do they want to be at the end of this year, next year, the years ahead, and see this is a great opportunity to kind of step into that from a personal standpoint of jobs. There's a lot of jobs that are emerging that may be a bit overlooked for many years. When it comes to deals, we've talked about the fact that there are deals that are in motion and revisiting the terms that are in those deals and seeing if you could strengthen them, extend the time a little bit so that you could figure out how to seize the opportunity when you get your capital stack together. That's a wonderful opportunity that's presenting itself over the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Fantastic. So we go back and look at this. We want to revisit our contracts. And if we have boilerplates and templates, go back and update those things and contact your attorney and figure out how to put out clauses in for time, money, extensions, those type of things. Next 6 months may be the best time to buy. And if you got cash, it's a great time to strike. And interest rates probably won't drop a lot in the very near future. And as Tunde said, you want to speed up your pivot. There's skills needed. It's a great time to go back and learn something new. Learn an electronic skill. If you have a tendency towards the trades and you're a young person, now's a great time to go and do that. Very high paying, very high demand right now. And deal terms, you're right. Look at your deal terms. Okay, so Jonathan, if people want to get hold of you, how do we contact you?
They can get a hold of me at my office number. It's 951-461-2500. My website is jrplawoffice.com, jpreston@jrplawoffice.com.
Okay, jrplawoffice.com. And then Steve Temple, we want to get a hold of you. How do we do that?
You can reach me direct at 951-695-0905. Or the email is Steve, S-T-E-V-E, at vintagemortgage.com.
Vintagemortgage.com. Steve at vintagemortgage.com for Steve Temple. And Tunde, how do we get hold of you if people want to follow up with your information?
If you want to follow up with me, I'm pretty easy to find. Tunde Ogunwale, Tunde, Ogunwale, Ogunwole. Phone number 310-433-6929.
All right, and you're on LinkedIn as well, right?
I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a message.
Fantastic. And I'm Steve Matley, your host, by the way. A shameless plug, I also work at New School of Architecture and Design. I run a construction management program. And as Tunde said, you want to develop those skills. I run an undergraduate degree, and I run a one-year master's degree, completely asynchronous online in construction management. If you're looking to move up to a higher level and become like Tunde and be a vice president instead of just being a middle manager somewhere, it's a great time to do that, especially if things are slowing down a little bit. I'm Steve Matley, your host. This is Real Men of Real Estate, and we will see you next week on this show on KCAA. And until we come back next week, go try do something different.
And now, the voices of KCAA with an exciting announcement.
Want to hear NBC News or KCAA anywhere you go? Well, now there's an app for that.
KCAA is celebrating 25 years and our silver anniversary with a brand new app.
The new KCAA app is